Okay, we'd like to go through this. Okay, Genesis 1 to 4, basically it says as his beginning, for he was at beginning, the Son of God, or the Milta, or Yeshua Mashiach, as he is later known, Jesus the Christ, created the heavens and the earth, creates the heavens and the earth. It was all for him, and it compares with where's a footnote? Over there. Okay, here we go. It compares with John 1 verse 1, in the beginning of creation there was the manifestation, and that manifestation was with God, and God was the embodiment of that manifestation. He was in the beginning with God. This was in the beginning with God. Everything was within his power or authority, otherwise nothing would ever exist. So he's given that authority. Right. Through him there was life, and life became the spark of humanity, and that ensuing fire lights the darkness, and darkness does not overshadow it. Okay, because in our question, how do you best, before that, how should we, as adherents or followers of God, be practicing God? And our answer was, according to God's dictates found within Scripture, without the need or huff or puff or added fluff or other silly nonsense that people tell you on sell you, right? Okay. So here, in the Brita or Genesis 1, as the beginning, the Son of God created the heavens and the earth, etc., etc. So we compare it to John 1 to 4, okay, New Testament. Okay. And part of this following according to God's dictates through the Scriptures, you need to know or come to know and realize the truth, because you are being duped. You're being suckered by your church, okay, with the Americanized, the modern Americanized English Bible versions, right, which are copies, copies of a copy 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 of copies, etc., etc. Whatever that theologian Bart D. Ehrman stated in one of his lectures or debates, they're copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of a copy, not the original, right? And what he's actually referring to is the Greek, right? He goes on about that. Okay, is that you're being duped, okay, because God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning became parts of one cycle, the first eon. No. My NIV says, my NIV, my RSV, my KFC, whatever, says the first day, right? You're wrong. Okay, where's the evidence? So look down here in the footnotes from these original translations, the original Brita or Genesis, and there's a word here in the Aramaic, Euma, which means eon. When translated, it means eon, immeasurable period. Okay, because nobody was there to say, oh yeah, God started at 2 o'clock in the morning and finished at 9 on Sunday. Okay, we were there, we know, there's no human beings. Scripture testifies, right, that there was none at the beginning. Age, so it's a measurable period, that means you don't know. You can't set a time and a date, right, or unfathomable period, age, or era, or day with a capital D. See, like you get these what's it called, Jewish Ritual Library, and these translations, Hebrew translations into English, and all these modern Americanized English versions that say, oh, it's a day with a little d, it's a literal day, like 12 hours of light, 12 hours of day, 12 hours of darkness, a 24-hour period, right? Okay, so it's a literal day of the week as we know it. Wrong. If these are the original ancient scriptures in the language of the language that God spoke to Adam and Eve, and the men on the Tower of Babel had when they're speaking to each other, then it's wrong. Okay, it's incorrect. It's false. Okay, because what it is, it's based on the lunar solar cycle. Okay? Somewhere in here, when God made the two lights, okay, up here somewhere, and God said, "Let there be suns in the sky of heaven." Okay, this doesn't mean that there was two suns. Okay, if you can find evidence that there was first two suns, let us know, in the comments. But it's an Eastern term. It's an Eastern expression, right? Way of looking at things. Let there be suns in the sky or heaven, so as to choose between the day over night. It's the terminology, right? That they should serve for signs and wonders, seasons and cycles, and for years. Does it say days? Where's days? Where's days? Any days in here? No, nothing. See? Say seasons and cycles and for years. Okay, what's a year to God? A day is like 1,000 years, or 1,000 years is like a week or something like that. Okay? And that they should glow in the sky of heaven to shine over the earth. Okay? Well, it's a planet, and then he puts a dry land, so that's dirt, soil, whatever. So yeah, you can call it the earth. And it was so. Okay? And God created two great celestial bodies, the greater one to have authority over the day, and the smaller one to have authority over the night. That means light and the darkness, right? Not a literal day and a literal night. And he created the stars and all the celestial bodies. Okay? And God gave them to the sky and heaven to shine on the earth, and to have authority over the day and the night, and to impose the light over the darkness. And God saw that they were beautiful, right? Why are we saying it's not a literal day and night? Because here it says, and that was the evening and the morning of the fourth eon. What was the eon? (153), literal Aramaic word, Euma. Eon, immeasurable period, age or day. There you go. Okay, so on, you've done all this creation here, right? All this work here, dinosaurs, great giant titans, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And in Genesis, or Brito 1:27, and God created the man, or the human being, to resemble, to look like him, right? And to be in his own visage, or likeness, or face, to have his face. Go to find the word visage. He created them. Them. That means there's more than one. Male and female. So there was two genders. Okay. Two sexes. And it has a footnote indication. 127. 127, one literal Aramaic word, Adam. Okay. It means the same in English as it does in the Aramaic. We'll have a look at the Aramaic New Testament, page 3, we believe it is. Translation by Victor N. Alexander. And it states, when it comes to names of people, this is on page 3, when it comes to names of people, there is only one name that sounds the same, both in English and the Aramaic language, and that name is Adam. All the other names in the Aramaic language sound different in English. Therefore, Victor N. Alexander has chosen to retain three names in the original. The first is the name of Yoshua. Yoshua is called Jesus in English. He feels that, Victor N. Alexander felt that the name of Yoshua should be pronounced correctly. Yeah, we don't have that accent, so we'll have a vain attempt at it. Yahshua, or Y-S-H-O, Yeshua Mashiach. The second is the name of Allah. It's not Allah, it's not Allah of the Islam or the Muslims. Okay, it's a completely different God. Why? Because they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Yeshua Mashiach is the Messiah, right? Okay, they only believe in the one God, a monotheistic God. There's no other. Okay, so it's not Aramaic collaboration there, right? They're two different gods, two different deities. So the second is the name of Allah. You might see sometimes Islam tries to say, in Aramaic, Allah, in Islam, Allah, and something else, Elohim or something. Yeah, they try to say the same thing. They're actually incorrect. And it's not, Allah is not in the Aramaic, right? So don't be fooled by their jibber jabber, okay? Because it's untrue. We can verify that. Okay, the second is the name of Allah. Allah is called God in English. There's no such word in the Aramaic Hebrew language. Okay? The third is the name of the Messiah, from Mashiach in Aramaic. Messiah is called Christ in English. Mashiach means the anointed. Messiah is an acceptable rendition of the word, while Christ comes from the Greek word for oil, and therefore the anointed in Greek. Since the New Testament was originated in the ancient Aramaic language and not in Greek, the word Christ is not used in this translation. The Aramaic New Testament, translated by Victor N. Alexander. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. See, so it says, and God created the human being to resemble His own image, to be like, it's like a portrait, right? Resembled His own facade, had His face. Right? He created them male and female. There's more than one, two genders. And God blessed them and said to them, multiply and increase, and fill the earth and its environments, or its regions, and have authority over the fish in the sea, and the birds of the sky, and the four-legged animals, and the creatures that crawl over the earth. Okay, so he's basically saying you use them as a source for food. You seldom eat them or sacrifice them, right? Okay, source for food would be like, using their teats or whatever to get milk, to make cheese, yogurt. What's the other thing? Is it curd or something? All these different things from that, from different animals, right? Like your sheep, goat, buffalo. Yeah, without actually eating that animal, right? It's a constant supply. If you eat that animal, well, maybe you don't have any more animal to get source from, not tomato sauce. Get the source of food from. Keep eating them, you'll eventually run out, won't you? Unless you find a way to keep breeding them, breeding them, so you never run out. Okay, so God blessed them and said, multiply. So they went somewhere else, probably towards the east of Eden or east of Paradise. And God said, behold, or look, I give you every plant with seeds. He's telling them, and he's also the trees. You can eat the fruit, eat the vegetation, all that sort of stuff. Okay, and he's giving them all the animals as a source for food. Okay, and he's all happy with that. And that was the evening and the morning of the sixth eon, immeasurable period, era, age, or day, with a capital D. Okay, not a literal day of the week. Okay, and in Genesis 2, God stops working in the sixth eon, immeasurable period, unfathomable period, eon, era, age, or day with a capital D. Right, not a literal day. And he rested in the seventh eon from all the work of creation, because he had no more need to create things, right? Okay, so he blessed that seventh eon and made it holy, because he rested in it from all his works of creation that he performed. Okay, so going way back up here, we may have missed out the bit on the celestial bodies, the suns, the moon, right? Okay, so your Sabbaths are based around the lunar solar cycle, the Creator's calendar. Okay, the latter Hebrew or Jewish calendar, not the Roman one, which is the lunar. It's the lunar. That's right. It's solar. It's a sun-oriented calendar. Not too sure about Islam. I think they might be. They could be lunar solar. I'm not really sure. Okay, so Genesis 2. Should really know, shouldn't we? Okay, so Genesis 2, and it goes back, and the Lord God molded Adam from the dust. There's another one here, different from his image, indicating he molded him from the dust to resemble himself. Okay, he had his likeness, had his face, etc. And he blew on their faces the breath of life, and Adam became a living soul. Okay, the breath of life. That's a breeze. It's that breath of life, So you go from inanimate soul to a animate soul. You get up and walk around, yeehaw, kick up your feet and all that sort of stuff. Okay, he becomes a living soul. Whereas these here, the first ones, had the breath of life, but they didn't have that Spirit of God put in them, right? So they can communicate with God, walk and talk with God, be in His presence, all that sort of stuff. See, they were the Aboriginal man, or we know them as the early Neanderthals. Ooh, really? Yeah, okay, so here we go, clicking on that blue link that was there. There's actually a link to this, the theory of the Aborigines, okay, by Victor N. Alexander. And he stated he would have liked to have written a seminal book on this theory, but he couldn't take the time at the time for mistranslation work, because he had to do the Old Testament, complete the Old Testament, because he's an older man, he has his problems, health problems maybe. So yeah, he's only got a certain amount of time, right? So he's trying to get it all completed. He actually made a statement, well, he might pass, but he's not worried about that. because someone might pick up his work, carry it on right after him, and it's like, well, teach us, O wise one, the Aramaic you know. He says, no, it's too hard for Westerners to grasp. It's the older, it's not the modern, the ancient, not the modern. So he says, just trust my translations because they're accurate. So we ended up building over time trust in him, trying to catch him out for years, or as long as we've known him, but we never did. He was a lovely elder man, like had a chuckle with us, all that sort of stuff, because he says, oh well, we find the most amazing, zany, load of rubbish stuff about the Aramaic online, How do we find that sort of thing? So we consider him a mentor, even though he's not. He's never said, yes, I am your mentor. Luke, I am your mentor. Or anything like that. We just regard him as that because we have that great respect for him, Okay, so he created this theory of the Aborigines, the Aboriginal factor. So far, the word Aborigines has been almost exclusively applied to the Australian Abos, or Aborigines. I could say Abos, because we're the neighbours of Australia, right? They're our bros here in New Zealand. Anyway, he thought the word Aborigine is a useful term and should be expanded in its meaning to apply to all people who have retained their Aboriginal qualities, despite the encroachments of the so-called civilization world. Victor N. would have liked to redefine this term and utilise it in advancing the theory of the Aborigine or the Aboriginal factor. But as he said up here, he couldn't take the time from his translation. It's like Bruce Lee. You can't take time to, watch a movie or muck around or, do the can or something, because he knew he had a certain amount of lifetime, right? He'd either become, flabby jelly or whatever, because he took all those steroids and whatever. He might die early, or he'd get old and he was afraid someone will kick his butt after that, all that sort of stuff. So he had all these ideas, and he had to get them out there in a hurry. And so on. Yeah. So in the first chapter of the Brita, or Genesis, it's revealed that God created the universe, the earth, the vegetation, and the animals. Then in the 6th eon, God created the human being. Genesis 1:27, 28, etc. So he creates this human being before he created Adam and Eve. What? Our church doesn't tell us that. Our Bible doesn't say that. Yeah, of course it doesn't. Yeah. Thus God created a human being before he created Adam and Eve, this Neanderthal man. Later it says in Genesis 27:2, and the Lord God moulded Adam from the dust to resemble himself. So that's a second, right? Made from a different way. Made a different way. And he blew on their faces the breath of life, and Adam became a living soul. So God created two human beings, Adam and Eve, and placed them in paradise after the serpent, or blah blah blah. Right? Further, in his interpretation of Genesis 6:4, it's obvious that there was the Neanderthals on the earth in those ages and even later, because the sons of God, there's the children of God, descendants of Seth, not some silly alien from Nanu Nibiru planet, all that sort of rubbish, entered upon the daughters of men. Yeah. They hooked up with them because they were hot, thought they were beautiful, so they left their rightful place, which was in the presence of God, as children of God. Okay. They were named the children of God, they became children of God. That holy line, and the aliens were born to them, not Nanu Shazpat Mork from Orc aliens, little green men, but these who became giants of eternal fame, legend, etc. Right? The word alien is appropriate in the sense of strange or weird in the ancient Aramaic language. So we're thinking, well, okay, is there something out there? Someone might know something about DNA. We have a friend who has a father, supposed to be a genetics expert or something like that. We never actually talked to him because he's too much of a rush. We haven't seen this guy since. So someone out there might know about DNA, right? Say if you have one set of DNA, genetics, or whatever, say if you try to mix it with a monkey or an ape's one with a human DNA, would it cause problems, or could it be similar to if you have a marriage and a relationship, do the wham bam with your sister or your brother, you get this, or too close a cousin, like your first cousin or whatever, right? You're too closely related, so you have those genetic defects that come out, like they might be missing a hand or a few fingers, or they might have that club feet problem, right? That's usually a result of that union, because like Zawi Hawass, I think his name is, the renowned Egyptologist who supposedly was involved in stealing artifacts from the pyramids and then selling them to museums. He was like poo-pooed for a while there, but because he was the top Egyptologist and he brought all the tourists in, when all the tourists started to wane, or not come visit anymore, they were worried, so they reinstalled him. But they still was that suspicion that he was an artifact thief and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, he's kind of a hard guy, Got all snotty at the lady that couldn't hold it 80 feet down in the pyramid and let it rip. Weed all over the place. He went all mental, And the guy didn't bring the lunch, or was soggy or something. When they got back up, then he was like furious as he has those fits. Well, he actually came from the Valley of the Kings with a shoebox or something on this documentary, and says he found the remains of two of these Egyptian rulers, brother and sister, or brother and half sister, or something like that. And these were the children that died young, right? And they had these club feet. And he was sort of hinting at, well, it seems like he was hinting at, there was that union between the brother and sister, because they were told or believed that their gods, with their God, had that relationship like that with his brother. The brother was like a brother had a relationship with the sister. Okay, so that's the reason why they followed it. So they don't hold it against them, right? It's just something that they were sold, right? And they believed in somewhere along the way. Okay, and that could have been the result. Yeah, actually showed them in these corpses, these mummified bodies or whatever, in the size of a shoebox, and he says, look, they got club feet. So that's probably why, because they were brother and sister, believing that their God was brother and sister, so they followed suit. It's just they were told a misdemeanor, and you can't hold it against all these Kemet followers today. Say, look, your ancients, that were like weirdos, all this sort of stuff, into incest, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, come on, man. That's if they're into that, they were the descendants of that. It's not their fault, is it? Okay, what their forefathers did 10,000 years ago, or whatever. Okay, so let's move along. Okay, so there's more to that. Okay, I could give you a couple of minutes to have a look at it. Stop the video, have a look at it while we have our cup of coffee here. It's getting cold. Yeah, stop the video if you want to actually read it, because we're going to move along. Okay, again, we're going to look at that question. We were supposed to answer it quite a while back. Okay, I'm going to go through that. Okay, because here's Enoch. About Enoch, it only says Enoch did his duty. Further on. Okay, here is Adam and Eve took his wife again. He did the wham bam with her, and she became pregnant and gave birth, and she called his name Seth. He's because God gave her another offspring in place of Abel, who was killed by Cain. Okay, and to Seth was born a son, and he called his name Enosh, after they were called after the name of the Lord. Okay, his descendants, they were called after the name of the Lord. 426. The beginning of the line of the children of the Lord. That's the holy line. Cain's gone into the east, into the land of Nod, and he's found him a wife and started a family, a village, a city, etc. Okay, and from there comes the unholy line, the godless line. So we're going to jump to Genesis 5, 6, 7 and 8. Okay, this is after Noah and the flood. Okay, I'm not going to delve on that much. Okay, human beings, we're just going to verify this. And while human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. The sons of God, it's the children of God, those who called upon the name of the Lord. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men, it's an unholy line. Okay, number 2 in the footnote, 6:2. Okay, here it is. Genesis 6, Urata, the Hebrew version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. We'll get into that later. What we think in regards to this. Okay, this Hebrew version of the Gilgamesh, of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay, so 6:2, literal Aramaic expression or idiom, daughters of the human being. Okay, up here. And here you need to realise, it says in your Americanized Bible versions that Adam's line Adam lived to be 930. Incorrect. Okay, if these are the original scriptures, right, via the language of God, the Lishan Articus of prayer of the Tav Eshret. Okay, says here that Adam, it's not saying that Adam lived to be 930. That's impossible because they're susceptible to disease, etc., etc. Okay, so they wouldn't live that long. It's a scientific fact. Yeah. So Adam's line, or his lineage, after the birth of his son Seth, lived 800 years, and to him were born many sons and daughters. Okay, so he had many more, Adam. And so Adam's entire line or lineage was 930 years altogether, and then it ended. Not that he was 930 years old, then he died. Okay? It's a mistranslation or transliteration, because then it continues to Seth's line. Okay? And his line was 912 years. That's how long it lasted, then it ended. Okay? It died out. And then it was followed on by Kenans, Mahalahels, Erads, up to Enoch. Yeah. So it's not that they all lived to be their age. In your Americanized English Bible versions, 930 to 777, all that sort of stuff, as an example. And it goes on about Enoch. Enoch was finally born. I'm pretty sure this is Enoch of the book of Enoch. He lived 65 years, and to him was born a son, Methuselah. And Enoch glorified God after the birth of Methuselah, his son, and his offspring. Right? He had other ones as well, his descendants, for 300 years. His offspring, yeah. His sons and daughters, or whatever, glorified God. Okay? For 300 years. They did the same, and he brought forth sons and daughters. Yeah? Perhaps he brought more, or his offspring did. Brought forth more. And Enoch's entire line was 365 years. That's his lineage. It's not saying that that's how long he lived for, because you got the Americanized Bible version that says He didn't die. God took him up in a fiery chariot. He went into space and saw the 7 heavens, all that sort of stuff. That's a book of Enoch, pseudepigrapha. It may not necessarily be the one that the Bible was actually talking about. Okay? Have a look at it. It's being pseudepigrapha. They probably don't know who the author actually is. They can't determine it, but they can estimate near exact or roughly what year that book was written, perhaps published. Okay. So here it's not saying that he lived forever, because God took him up in a fiery chariot and he saw the 7 heavens and the watches and all this sort of stuff. Okay. Okay. Then his son lived, and he had a son called Lamech, and so forth. And then Noah's line, or his lineage, was 500 years, and during that to him were born Shem, Cam and Japheth, right? They came out of the ark. Okay. So while the human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. Because remember, Cain killed Abel, and then he was banished by God out of his presence into this land of Nod, right? But he says, somebody there, if they find me, they'll kill me. So God puts a special sign on him. Don't anybody touch him, or else, just consecrates it 7 times 70 or whatever. Okay? So he went into this other land of Nod, as he said, if others find me there, they'll kill me. Right? So who are these others? Church pastors, evangelists, Christians will say, oh no, that's there was no others, because it's only Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Yeah, Cain kills Abel. Okay? And it doesn't mention that they had daughters in between God's conversation and him leaving. Right? It wasn't until after Cain was in the land of Nod and found his wife and had some descendants, built a city or a village or whatever it was. Right? That was after. Okay? So he goes into that land, and who was there? These Neanderthals. Remember, from the very beginning, God says, go forth, multiply, all that sort of stuff, increase, blah, blah, blah. So off they wandered, even though it doesn't indicate it. Obviously, everyone seems to be moving to the east, to the east, to the east through the scriptures, right? So they go into the land of Nod, the land of wandering, which is in the east of Garden of Eden, east of paradise, east of the place where Adam and Eve got ousted, outside the garden. So Cain goes east of that, right, into an eastern land, and then somebody else does something, and they go east, keep going east. Okay? You can't go west or north, because it's ocean, apparently, if you look at those old maps. Around that area, probably be ocean, right? Even if you walked across, even if it was a vast desert region, you'd eventually get to the ocean, wouldn't you? Either way. So they're going east, being prodded to go east for a very specific reason.